more with steel on the East Coast, concrete. We have a line of expansion structures, really a lot of different possibilities with modular buildings. We're active with a Modular Building Institute group. Al and I have both served on the board of directors, and Drew Wellborn, the VP at Whitley, is currently the president or the incoming president. So we've been involved with modular for a long time. Alan also serves on the, is it the board of Al and I?
Factory assembled structure.
Factory assembled structures board with labor and industries. So it's important to us that we have a really good relationship and involvement with Al and I. Alan started as general manager at Whitley in 2014. Prior to that, he worked at Blazer. He worked as a construction, worked in construction prior to Blazer, came to Blazer as a siding, on the siding crew, and decided he wanted to work in the office, so he trained to become an estimator and was at Blazer for about, Blazer's a modular building manufacturer in Oregon, and he was there for about 25 years, decided to make a change, and he went to work for M-Space, a modular building dealer, and then was asked to join Whitley. I also worked at Blazer as a project manager prior to moving up to Washington. I worked for Pacific Mobile Structures, who is a modular building dealer, general contractor up here based in Washington. And now I'm working primarily with Whitley in sales and project management. We also met Stuart years ago through when he was building a project, an affordable housing project located in Portland. He worked with Blazer to build that project, and that's how we got to know him. If you look at the pictures, the first picture is the Tesla STEM School in Redmond, Washington, that Alan worked on while he was at M-Space. It's a 2-story structure. We have the energy positive classroom that Alan and I worked to develop with Hawaii Modular Space and Department of Education and Anderson Architecture. We developed the SAGE classroom, which was a collaboration with Blazer, Portland State, and Pacific Mobile Structures. These are all modular. We've worked on some housing with Michelle Kaufman. More housing. Let's see, more housing. This was with Anderson Architecture. And that's what a classroom looks like on a barge traveling from Washington to Hawaii, right there. And then Whitley recently built an affordable housing village that's located in Waianae, Hawaii. I'm gonna flip this over to you, Stuart.
Okay, let's see how we're gonna do this. Did that work? I think that worked.
You have a blue screen. Working.
Did that work?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not blue anymore. It's got pictures on it. Right at the beginning of my career down in Los Angeles, I worked for Koenig Eisenberg, and when I was focusing on affordable housing and homeless housing. One project I was project architect, project designer on was the Simone Hotel that got national AIA awards. And this is right at the beginning, right after I got out of grad school. And I still like this as a model. It's an SRO for 120 people right in the middle of Skid Row. I went back to visit it just last year, and they're doing a remodel of it. It's had quite a bit of wear and tear, but it's held up really well. And I've done a lot of traditional stick-built affordable housing too. This is a project in Vancouver, Washington. This is a smaller 12-unit project in Portland, Oregon. And also I did a lot of planning of livable communities with affordable housing and community centers and schools. I've also been working on shelters. This is down in Portland. There's a rework of the Wapato jail, and I created the vision for it. So the befores are on the left and the afters are on the right. And this project is in construction right now, and hopefully it'll be occupied to a degree in about a month or so. So I've had a long-standing interest in homelessness, and I wrote a homeless report for Portland, Oregon 2 years ago to build shelters and housing for 4,200 people on the street. This is our Quezon Chaco Haas project. This was, I think, one of the first, and Grace, you were doing affordable housing and modular too, but this was in 2013. We built it at Blazer Industries. Kendra was involved in this project, and it was 9 units for affordable housing, Section 8 housing. We had studios in the front, 1 bedrooms in the middle part, and 2 bedrooms in the back. We wanted to test stacking, so we went to 3 stories, and we wanted to test units. And this was designed to, these units were designed to go to scale up to 40 to 80 units. And the Portland Housing Authority was the major funder of this project. So a lot of lessons learned off of this project. Actually, it went really pretty well. And we thought it was a pretty good success. This is a picture of a studio unit and a picture of a 2-bedroom unit over here on the left. And this is the 15th module going in, hopefully not on top of my head here, but this is what it looked like before we put, right after installation. And we had quite a big crane out there. I've been working also on micro units. This is my I'm Home 2 unit that's 12 feet wide by 26'4". And this was just a mock-up of what it might look like in a 4/1 setting. And I'm looking at this project, this unit type, locally on the Oregon coast and also in Los Angeles. I'm laying out a project in south of downtown Los Angeles for this a project with these units. And King County, in addition to the Elliot shelter project, has contracted with Whitley and Emmons to do the micro dwelling units. There's still, it's on the King County website, where the site has not been located. It's 20 units that are designed for about 100 by 100 lot. And this is what a unit looks like, full ADA with a kitchen and kitchenette. We might put a burner in there. There's been discussion about that, or it's microwave with a closet. And this complies with Seattle's CDU. So my I'm Home 2 are 12 feet wide, and because of the CDU requirements and 7-foot clearances and some of the other clearances because of the Seattle code, we went up to 14 feet here. And currently, Elizabeth, I'm working with Walsh Construction on Walsh has a program that I think they've been doing a couple of years. Mike Steffen in the Portland office, and also is up in Seattle a lot. It's called the CEDC project. Mike and I have known each other. Actually, Walsh did a modular symposium at their office about 10 years ago now. This is when it, and Blazer Industries was part of that. And so, so whether it's modular or stick build, Walsh wants to look at making affordable housing more affordable, and looking at efficiencies in the amount of skin on a unit, and trying to reduce the cost of units through the geometry and using the timber really efficiently and so on. So these are the units are all at, in this case, are about 25 feet deep, and then they just add on to each other. So when a 2-bedroom unit just adds on another unit, and then a 3-bedroom gets a little bit longer. So we were just approved about 3 weeks ago for a 42-unit project on the Oregon coast. I was just meeting about that this morning with the city. And this we're going to break ground in about May 1st, 2021 on this project. So a lot of modular thinking we're doing. Modular to me is it's about repetition. It's about stacking. It's about all the systems are really thought through. So reduction in pipe length and things like that. And this project shows that as well. So Kendra, you're going to go. I'm going to kick it over to you, but or this goes to Poppy. So Poppy, are you going to do a share screen on this?
Yeah.
Do you want? Do you want me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you want me to show this here, or do you want to do your thing?
I can introduce ourselves and our firm and what we've been working on, and then we can switch back to the site plan if you'd like.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share, okay? Or do you want me to keep it up?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to stop sharing? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought fine. Keep it up. Yeah, I'll stop share.
Yeah.
There.
Perfect.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Huh?
No, great. Can see it.
Can you guys see it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just pulled up a couple of projects that we've been working on. We also have been working with Walsh on some of the CEDC projects. I think we're working on 3 or 4 in-house right now. Those are in various stages of design and going in for funding and whatnot. So I don't have any real pictures of those, but this is a recent project that we've completed in Redmond with HopeLink. It's the Redmond Integrated Service Center. It's a 2-story building. It's all wood construction. We had to look pretty closely at costs. So we looked at all the modulation and different types of framing and all of that for this project. It's a food bank, services, administration, community gathering. It's basically, they pulled all of their Eastside programs into one space. And so the left is the street view, and then the right is the interior. This is North Haven Workforce Housing and Childcare. This actually, we are using the CEDC method on this. We're working with Walsh on it, with Elizabeth and Dennis actually. We've had to modify just because of the site constraints a little bit of the CEDC guidelines. So we're not completely adhering to it like we are with our College Way shelter project that's in Mount Vernon. But this is a good one. I think it's a good example of how you have to try and fit these into tight urban infill lots where you're going property line to property line and some of the design review requirements. So we've actually had to add in some bays and some other things that, that the CEDC method doesn't necessarily address. So I think it's interesting to look at from an urban infill perspective. This is 90 units of housing, workforce housing, all different income levels, and then around 120 classroom childcare center. This is our Sunset Oaks workforce housing project in Renton. I think that this could have easily been a modular project if modular was a little bit further along. And that's why I pulled this one up. It's a very repetitive project, and each of the units are very similar. So I think that it easily could have been based on a modular layout. It's also 59 workforce units. It's 3 buildings on a campus down in Renton. Another project that we have recently started is the Together Center. We're partnering with Inland, who is a East Side housing developer that's working on the West Side now of Washington State. And they're actually doing the housing above, and we've been brought in to work with Together Center on their programming and building out their tenant improvement, which is 3 different buildings. All of the different services that they provide on the East Side are going to be housed in this building. We've been tasked with weaving some concepts into the storefront so that it doesn't just look like a standard storefront retail area. They really want it to have some heart and feel like they're a community or neighborhood center. It has a health clinic, mental health services, about 20 different small nonprofits, anywhere from 1 to 10 people, Lake Washington school programs, a dental clinic, community conference center. It's a pretty humongous project underneath these housings. And Horizon House is the one that is the housing that's above this housing that's shown here, which is transitional housing or homeless housing. And we're working with Patrick Tippy on that. Inland is actually providing that. They're partnering with Inland on that project, and Olson Architects is the architect for the core and shell and all of the housing. So we're working very closely with them together on that. And this is another project that we're working with Homestead Community Land Trust on. And this is one phase of 2 phases. And I brought this one up because I also think that this could be could have been a potential for modular. And I'd really like on the phase 2 to explore modular for this project. I think that now that modular has been used a few times, we can actually get that potentially to be to pencil for them. We looked at it briefly for these 3 buildings. You can see that they're pretty standard townhome buildings. One of the things about this project is that it's a net zero energy project, completely, totally net zero. So, and they decided to do net zero actually when we were almost in for permitting. So it's been a lot of redesign that we've had to do on the project. So that's a lessons learned for us to try to get those decisions made early. I mean, we already knew that, but again, we're learning that again. And I think that's it. And then I'm gonna stop sharing so that you can bring the site plan back up there, Stuart.
I'll take it. I'll take
Or
this.
Kendra. Okay.
I'll take that.
And then while Kendra's pulling that up, we were brought into the King County Shelter Project as the site architect. And so we were brought in to look at all of the code requirements and all of the things associated with putting multiple buildings. That's awesome. That's great. To look at all of the pieces that are associated with putting multiple buildings on a site, and really trying to think through what would happen if we pulled the buildings down or took them away from the site and installed them on a new site. So we spent quite a bit of time talking with the city and the fire department, really to completely understand the requirements for the different buildings for fire rating, for residential versus A3. And I'm sure that Stuart and Kendra will talk a little bit about that, where we need sprinklers, where we didn't, and how much flexibility that would give us over time, since this is not a permanent site. And then we thought that the project had gone on hold, and then all of a sudden with COVID, it reappeared, which was great. And I'm sure Kendra's gonna talk a little bit about that timing. So now it's built and it's ready to be moved into, so.
Kendra, you're on mute if you're saying something to us.
Can you see my pictures? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I had a slideshow, but it has music with it. I don't know how to turn off the music. So I'll just scroll through the pictures. Just a quick overview of the project. In August of 2017, King County issued an RFI, which we replied to with DESC. Their objective was to design and build shelters for people transitioning out of homelessness that could easily be relocated to other sites, split up, or reconfigured as needed. They originally requested 2 models on separate sites. One is the congregate shelter that is now built, and the other is the micro-dwelling unit that Stuart showed you. In early 2018, Whitley, DESC, Catholic Housing, and King County held a charrette to discuss what are the service providers' wish lists. Whitley eventually hired Stuart Emmons to design the modulars, and Catholic Housing hired Third Place Design to design the site and work with the permits. Initially, Catholic Housing was working with, Walsh Construction was going to be the GC on the project, and they put in a lot of time on the project, and we really appreciate all the work that they did. We're due to COVID, we had a change of contractor, so we were disappointed that Walsh couldn't finish the project, but we were also happy to work with Howard S. Wright. So the King County's other goal was to provide a new model that could be replicated and taken to scale on publicly owned land owned by nonprofits, and siting on faith-based owned properties. So here's the project. If you can see the pictures a little bit, just in its finished state. And Stuart will he'll show you the layout for the project and talk about why it's laid out the way it is. There are the interiors. So we wanted to have an architect involved from the very beginning, and that's why we worked with Stuart to make sure that the initial drawings are properly dimensioned for transport down the road, and that they're easy to connect and finish up on site. And this shelter, as you all well know, it needed to be vandal resistant, easy to maintain, comfortable for the occupants, and easily relocatable. So we will switch over to Stuart.
Okay. So I was involved in the charrette in, what was it, January 2018
was the charrette.
2018. Put up a lot of blank white paper. We had a lot of representatives from the county. DESC came for the first time to look over and discuss this project, and as well as Catholic Community Services. The county had allocated, I think way back in 2016, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, about $5 million for a shelter project, but it wasn't really defined until we did the charrette. And in the charrette, I showed the Home 2 units. We talked about what is a shelter and the types of populations, and obviously the need, and also building some projects that could act as a base for other projects and get lessons learned from them. So we ended up out of the charrette doing 2 projects, not one, and splitting that 5 million and maybe having other funding sources come on. So one of them was a shelter with these dorm rooms. This was a little bit unusual because over in, I believe it's Japantown, DESC was in an office building, and they had a navigation center. And just sort of coincidentally, the layout of the building had rooms that allowed about 8 to 10 beds, and there was some common space in there, as opposed to this big gang shelter with like 100, 120 bunk beds. And they were finding, I think DESC and Catholic Community Services felt that actually was not a bad model, where to have, and this was mixed gender, and I think of the NAV Center, no children. In fact, I'm sure of that. but they were thinking that having rooms that not having everybody in their individual room, which brings on other issues. There are a lot of people coming off the street or probably are maybe not ready to be in their own studio or micro unit. And this idea of having 8 beds with they said 10 maximum was really actually turning out to be a good model. Built a little community. People had roommates. People started looking out for each other. So that was sort of the basis of the Elliot project coming out of that charrette that we settled on, this 8-bed dorm idea, and having individual. It was always going to be modular. That money was targeted for a modular project for homeless, and with support services attached to that. And then on the other side was our micro dwelling unit that were going to be micro units, and that project is still on the county website and is looking for a site at this point, but and on hold, whereas this project was obviously moving forward. So anyhow, we have in this case we have Pearl Jam bought one of these dorms, by the way. Pearl Jam was behind this, and very supportive of this project among others. But we have this, we did a layout. There was some sprinklering issues. We wanted to build a campus. All the buildings are on wheels and are movable. There's a 1 to 5 year window where of this being located in this site. And then it's easy to take the disconnect the piping and then move this, put some air in the tires and move these buildings to other locations. Community building here has, we spent a lot of time with, so DESC was going to work on the micro unit. This was a Catholic community services project. They were wonderful to work with. And a lot of the layouts were coming from lessons learned from shelters at Catholic Community Services. And we got into like little things like having secondary doors and circulation, and looking over building a community and having advocates and case managers with window. This was very glassy, so and the entry and the security issues with the entry, people coming off the street, and whether you take a bike through the side area or come through into the campus here. So security was always a big concern too. This kitchen was a warming, maybe the word kitchen's not right, it's more food prep, warming kitchen. This was pre-COVID. When I was giving a tour, I said, oh, this is where the salad bar is going to be and whatever. And I went, wait a minute, we're not doing salad bars anymore. So there will be packaged food coming on site for the residents, and then warmed or just located here. And there's a coffee machine, some refrigeration, interview rooms, counseling. So a lot of what we were seeing at the NAV Center too is housing counselors, so people could come here, get clean, get counseling and so on, and then move hopefully on in as 120 days, 150 days, whatever, to more of a permanent housing situation. So anyhow, the community room is here, staff lounge is here, and some staff functions in this building. Over here is a resident services building. So boy, we spent a lot of time talking about laundry. It's a little bit of a community gathering area too. Laundry, staff laundry, visiting providers. So this would be for people taking care of haircuts and hairdos and veterinarians and all. So there's sort of like maybe even some light medical would take care. So this was a multi-purpose visiting provider room, and then just housekeeping in this area. In the dorms, so we had 9 times 8 beds, and with cross ventilation going through here, and across from 10 feet across is these bathroom modules. And we decided to do single toilets, not gang, due to gender issues, and also just functioning at work better privacy and so on. So toilet and sink here, and there are are 10 of those toilet sink rooms. And then shower rooms, we have 8 shower rooms. And this is a module and that's a module. So we had a lot of issues about, this is a low bar facility, and low bar meaning that people will be, I don't know if they're allowed to drink on campus, but they are certainly do not have to get fully sober to be a resident here, and ditto with drug use and so on. So we talked a lot about what if somebody, and it's very probable they will, is doing drugs in the shower room or the toilet, and what happens if they pass out. And Catholic Charities was, we really had a lot of good discussions about this, and we're sort of on the, there was somebody, I think in Delaware, who came up with this reverse occupancy. So somebody needs to make some motion in the bathrooms, and after a certain time period, if they're not making motion, a light goes off. And so one of the staff here is aware that there's somebody in this room and they're not making motion. So we had, and then also these are the only rooms where residents will be alone. So we wanted to make these very, very durable, and you know, even looking into what was on the ceiling and connections, and so on. Around this whole facility, and thank you so much to Third Place Design. They were wonderful to work with. This is welcome ramp that is built down in, I think, Auburn. And this is just an aluminum ramping system that's used a lot with modular projects. A lot of school projects use this, this material. This is just an aluminum, they're 12 inches by 5 feet. And modules, and these are 5 by 5 squares. And so we had a little bit of grading here. So we have a ramp going down to a lower portion, and then the upper portion where there's an outdoor space. We're still, we'll see if this gets covered. The intent is to cover this area, and also higher priority is to cover between the dorms and the restrooms. And then over here, bike parking. This is a little bit of an earlier plan. So Poppy, this has been updated, Snow, and bike work area. And then we have parking access here. So the other thing, when we took a tour of the navigation center, we realized that residents, this is about dignity. And so if somebody has a dog or belongings in a couple of shopping carts or something, we didn't want to say, no, you can't bring that stuff on campus. That is exactly what Catholic Community Services did not want to do. They wanted this to be low bar. They wanted people to feel welcome and bring their stuff, and it would be okay. So we had a dog walk area in here. Dogs are allowed on site. And also for at the navigation center, when we took a look at that, they have a huge underground parking area with chained off area for resident storage and bicycles and grocery carts and whatever. So we want to have a place where residents could bring their belongings and have them stored securely and get to them. And so we didn't have to say no to things like that. Did I want to add something? Or
How about I'll wrap it up some more, just a final information, and then we can get to Q&A.
Okay.
Can you?
And I have an aerial view too. I got, I talked my way onto, it's not the first time I've done this. Kendra was with me. We talked our way onto our roof. And so this is the aerial from a condominium building over east of the site. So that's aerial view. And this is the context where Elliot here, railroad tracks, these rails, they're fairly quiet in this area. And then of course the rate on the sound in this area too. And this is a county building over here. Okay. So
all right.
Kendra, what do you want to do?
Can you switch over to my screen?
Yep. There.
So real quickly, I'll finish up and then you can ask more questions after. The construction timelines for each module, we figured between 3 weeks to build, start to finish, to 7 weeks. And buildings with more plumbing or drywall, more complicated buildings might take up to 7 weeks to build in our factory. And we tried to stage them to be completed by the original date of April or May of 2019. And as the project was postponed due to site issues, we sort of stretched out the building timeline so that we could work on other projects and finish up our other projects while we were waiting for the site to be ready. And you can ask more questions about that later. And then when it came to delivery, we were on hold. We got a call March 9th of 2020. We were told that we had a new GC, a new project management firm, OAC, helping out King County. And also DLR architects had some input into the project as well. So from March 9, we had to go ahead and we had to be completely off the project by April 24. We condensed our delivery from 4 weeks, our delivery and install, we condensed from 4 weeks to 1 week. So basically we were delivering several mods per day in the early hours. And luckily it was, the good thing about quarantine was there was no traffic. So it was really easy to get from Marysville and Seattle at any time of day during that period. AccuSet came in and did the final setup. They had the building set up in a week as they were delivered every night. AccuSet came in and put the building together. They had the and as soon as a couple of the first buildings were set in place, Welcome Ramp came in and started building their ramps. Let's see, cost. The nice thing about modular, working with a reputable modular builder, no major changes, the costs are going to remain fairly fixed. We priced this project out prior to final design, and we were able to hold our cost. And the final cost with the expedited delivery, the extra cost for setting up the buildings was around $2.7 million on Whitley's side. I don't have the final site costs. So do we want to go into challenges and lessons learned, or do we want to do a Q&A, Lauren?
Well, maybe, do folks have questions about anything that has been covered so far, and we can address those and then kind of wrap up with what you have, Kendra?
Okay.
I have a question. This is Grace. I'm curious to know, I mean, I think this is really great, and it's great to see that there was both the congregate housing model and the CEDU model. And have you, either Whitley or the architects, have you approached or talked with any of the East Side municipalities or any of the providers? I just feel like there's so much need right now, and I don't know if this building is occupied yet. That's the other question I have. Has it received occupancy, and what is the holdup if not? But also just like, it seems like thinking about Vancouver, BC, and their ability to quickly produce this type of housing and get it, on site and into use was tremendous. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is our problem here in the U.S. in Seattle and King County?
I'll answer.
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit since we did a lot of the permitting pieces, if that's okay, Stuart and Kendra. We met with the city of Seattle from the very beginning when we first started laying out our site plan, so that we really understood and they really understood what we were trying to accomplish. That included meeting with the fire department as part of those meetings because the way that the buildings were laid out on site was totally impacted by the fire department requirements for their hose lengths and all of those things. So I think that because this was the first one, it was a little more difficult to get permitted. City of Seattle, it's not, I felt like it was the land use component that was the most difficult, not the building.
Yeah, I agree with you, Poppy. To answer Grace's question about occupancy, there's still not a certificate of occupancy for a project, and the holdup has to do with the fire marshal. So like Poppy said, they were meeting with City of Seattle early on, and we just couldn't foresee what the fire marshal was going to decide they wanted to see on site. And that's one of the frustrations or one of the lessons learned or challenges that Howard S. Wright told me about is just had we had time or had we thought to coordinate the local jurisdictions and look over the plans, everybody have enough time to review the modular drawings and the site drawings and be able to let us know ahead of time what they would expect. It would have, maybe the project would be occupied by now.
Yeah, I mean, even though I do feel like we met with the fire department and showed them our plans multiple times during design, but even then it still has been difficult with them coming out to site and changing their mind and all of the things related to the issues with the fire department that we have on normal buildings, we still have on this building. Or this type of building.
So can I chime in a little bit? I'm gonna take a different tack here, and I saw this on the Keystone Chaco Haas project. What was that? 8 years ago. If we're going to do pilot projects, they need to be pilot projects, and there needs to be a strategy and funding source to go into phase 2, phase 3, to take lessons learned and to build more projects. So these were all designed to be replicable. As was the case on many years ago and many other projects too. But due to several reasons, especially with going out for requests for proposals and so on, it's really hard for projects like this to go into, to learn from the lessons, especially government projects, and go into phase 2 and phase 3 and go to scale. Like Kason should have had an 80-unit project on the backside of it. This project, there should be 5 more of these at least. And Grace, you really made a good point there. Why in the heck are we stopping? Why did we just build a pilot project? It's not really a pilot project, it's just a standalone. It really needs to be replicated, and there needs to be a pathway to do that.
And I think regarding City of Vancouver, as far as I know, the city has been much more cooperative about getting these projects built, or the jurisdictions have been better organized. And I think there are other cities that have done it well, isn't it? I think it's Houston, or it's been a while since I've done the research, but there are other cities that are able to focus in on this and figure out how to be better organized. And
Marty, do you have any insights about why this is a holdup? I mean, it's a priority for the county and for the city. I don't understand how the fire marshal is holding this up. I mean, with the thousands of people sleeping on the streets at night, like why are 72 people not home?
No, I'll just be candid with you, Grace. I mean, this is really disappointing news for me. I hadn't realized we were at this stage. It's disappointing in a number of ways. I mean, I was just reflecting the other day with Auburn University people out of Alabama on the House of the Immediate Future we did for the Next 50 celebration next to the Space Needle in 2011 when I was directing Habitat's work. And I had to have SDCI and the fire marshal and everybody at the initial charrette planning meeting for that thing, because I wasn't going to move a needle or a dime until I knew everybody was on board. And it's just shocking to me that with the government entities so focused on getting this to happen so that we can start to mobilize, that somebody didn't cross the T's and dot the I's long before we got to this stage. I mean, that's purely disappointing.
Oh, I don't, Marty, this is Bobby. I don't think that that was the case at all. I mean, we had over like 15 meetings with the city and the fire department and talked to them through every stage of our design to make sure that the fire department was okay with the layout of the site. And
This goes beyond architects. This is like the elected leaders and
Exactly. So
yeah,
at
it's
this point,
political will.
at this point, if someone who was part of the situation is not playing, then it has to be dealt with at a higher level. I can honestly tell you, when we did the 6 stories of wood construction work post-Holla, it took me 1.5 years, and an awful lot of threats of forcing elected officials to breathe down the back of the administrative staff because they wouldn't play. This is
Lorraine with Howard S. Wright. Can I weigh in on my knowledge with Lieutenant Wyatt? Because he was on my projects as well, and there seems to be a power struggle between King County officials and the fire department.
Yes.
And I think without sounding like there was, a lot of fighting going on, but there was. The fire marshal had just had it at the point when my project turned over before Elliot. And it's because King County just went down the road following hey, we got this Washington emergency order. We don't need a permit. And that's when Lieutenant Wyatt was like, sure, you may not need a building permit, but guess what? You need to make this building as safe as possible. So what he did is, at my site, he made the requirements so stringent to the point of he brought out his oldest, clunkiest fire engine truck to see if it could turn around in the space that we gave them on the site. He added all those bug eyes out at Elliot and more exit signs. He added something like, I want to say 23 exit signs and fire extinguishers at my project. So it has, I hear what you guys are saying. I mean, you guys were diligent, you did your part, but at this point, it was Lieutenant Wyatt and their group, and all of these fire marshals, regardless of what jurisdiction you're in, you could be in Bellevue, you could be down in Vancouver, Washington, Tacoma, they all talk.
Yep.
And so they were all well aware of what King County was trying to do, and I think it just frustrated them that it was without much regard to public safety.
Well, I can tell you they brought into one of the charrettes on the 6-story work insurance person somewhere out of the South, and she decided to interrupt the flow of the meeting by saying, why is it that you aren't looking at subsidizing your housing more instead of making housing more risky for people to live in? And it's, I had to go to Harold Scoggins, in order to get buy-in finally from the fire department to play at the table, because the people they were sending to the table were obstructionists. And I guess I'm just surprised at this point that leadership of the county and the city haven't gotten together and elevated this to a point where they're getting rid of the petty issues and inhabiting this building.
Yeah, I think that it seems like there's something needs to happen, because given the state of our of everything right now, I don't understand how any elected official or even these fire marshals who are on a power trip can justify not housing 72 people. Why is this facility vacant? That is negligence.
Mine's still vacant, and the simple reason is because I've got something like 180,000 square feet of space with no sprinklers. And so that's why the fire marshal was really strict, and he said, okay, King County, in order to get your occupancy, this is what I need from you. I need an operations manual with a clause in there that tells me whoever's doing the fire watch, which you need to have 24/7, is trained, and you have an evacuation plan, emergency contacts, and it's still not done. That's why.
The manual is not done?
Correct.
I mean, they would have an on-site manager. I don't understand what the problem is. Add that
Yeah,
to their
well,
job.
No, not
Job
just an
description.
on-site manager. The person who does fire watch has to do nothing but fire watch. They can't be the on-site manager.
So then hire somebody. Like, these are all solvable problems. I think it still goes, I mean, I'm not blaming any of you all. Like,
No.
everyone here has done their job.
Yeah.
I think there are other factors, and I guess I wonder, Marty, like, what can be done?
Yeah, well, I guess, if I start sticking my, here's the old adage I learned years ago: if you've been eating the fry bread, don't touch the pottery, because once you do, you got your fingerprints on it. So I need to have some real clarity about what's going on and who the players are and how this has been elevated. But otherwise, I would be happy to make a couple calls and say what the hay is going on here.
So who would have knowledge of that? Is that Catholic Housing
Well,
Services?
Valerie
or-
Kendall. No, I think it would be Valerie Kendall. She's our project manager at King County. So
All right. Well, Valerie and I have
and
who
she
else?
reports directly.
Okay. Yeah, let me just start doing some digging and just see what I can surface. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can use the offsite task force as like the vehicle in which you're doing this. It's not Marty just sticking his nose into things, but the task force is asking these questions because we're trying to figure out ways to reduce the barriers. And we have 2 examples of projects that are completed and ready to be occupied, and there is a government entity standing in the way of hundreds of people potentially being able to be housed. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, this is a replication of a lot of conversations we've had here. When you compare the molasses in King County and Seattle to what happened up in Vancouver, BC, it's almost an entire contrast.
Yeah, we need to get everybody sort of in line, or otherwise the work that the task force is doing is completely worthless.
Yeah. Well, and that everybody else is doing to show how we can expedite and house people.
Yeah. Yeah.
What an expose for the times.
Yep. That would be a very interesting thing for the Times to show up and ask questions about, like, why is this facility vacant for the last 5 months while COVID is going on and people are unhoused? Could be a little embarrassing.
Well, it could be embarrassing for anybody depending on how they skew it. If they skew it as these construction companies and modulars are difficult to bring in, well, that's not the truth.
Right.
Not that we are certainly not perfect, and we didn't have a perfect project.
Yeah. Alternative facts.
Yeah.
And then the other question that Grace had was, have we talked with side service providers about affordable housing? Is that what you asked?
Or just other county,
Yeah. We haven't. We don't typically reach out to those groups, but we're happy to work with architects or with other companies to.
So you should talk to Elizabeth. She has been doing her rounds with the CEDC. I would say not only Stuart, but Poppy and us and all sorts of other architects, I'm sure, are going into this funding round using those CEDC plans. And so I think that you have the power if you can collaborate with other folks that are doing this work. I mean, I don't know. I know, if it's both Oregon and Washington that Walsh Construction is doing this massive kind of marketing and PR effort. And I think it's good, it's valuable, it's very much in line with modular and just trying to bring down the cost. I think those are the same folks that you probably want to be talking with, and maybe talking to them about how can you modularize those units for them, because that's how we're going to bring down the cost. If we can just, if every architect in Seattle and Portland was designing with these modules and those things were rolling off the factory floor every day, then maybe we have a chance of actually trying to address the problem.
Yeah, and for that, the design does, like I said, it's got to start from the very beginning, the napkin sketches. It has to start as modular.
And I think there's folks like Stuart and Poppy and I, as well as others, that are willing to do that.
Yeah, we'll connect some more with Walsh. It's Elizabeth at Walsh that you were talking about, right?
Yep, and she's been going around to all the designers, all the housing authorities, all the nonprofits.
Yeah, I'll connect with her and find out what she's working on. And Whitley's always available, just even to ask questions. Even if you don't use us, we want to be part of the process or part of the group, and we have a lot of experience and are willing to share that, because we want this to work as well. And you know, we also want to keep our factory going and our employees employed.
Yep, it's win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Are there any other questions, or do you want me to go over some more lessons learned?
Actually, I'm gonna have to jump off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're at time. You know, Kendra, it might be worth it to chat offline about having you, maybe Lorraine and some Stuart, other project partners, come back and talk to our offsite construction task force to just kind of continue this conversation.
And I think it'd be great
to
try to do this again, Lauren. I don't know why the attendance was low. I think I think just everyone's busy and things, but just not being face-to-face a lot doesn't help in terms of trying to get people to come to things.
We've actually postponed 2 Learn It lunches in the last 3 weeks, because of, I think everybody's just on that vacation time or something's going on. So
or zoomed out.
Yeah, it's a low time.
We're happy to do whatever. We're happy to make another presentation. This was good because it was a little bit of problem solving for me and making sure that we time it out, and we're willing to work with you and find the format that works and just try to get this information out.
Yeah, well, we really, really appreciate everybody's time and those who could join us. And Kendra, can folks follow up with you directly if they have questions?
Yeah.
Super.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll circle back
All right.
soon.
Okay, thanks.
Nice to meet you. Take care. Bye.